Hey folks, and welcome back to Glenn and Adrian's Rock Talk. Hey, Adrian, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Glenn?
Doing good. I'm kind of reliving the 80s a little bit since we've been...
Oh, yeah.
This week, our subject is the PMRC hearings, which was a milestone in the music and entertainment industry in the middle of the 80s.
I think the hearings were September of 85, I think.
What happened was Tipper Gore brought home a copy of Purple Rain for her 11-year-old. She got to the song Darling Nikki and kind of had a meltdown.
I met her in a hotel lobby, masturbating with a magazine.
And then also she was upset with Sheena Easton over Sugar Walls. Which, incidentally, was also written by Prince. But that's neither here nor there. She decided to start a little council, and it ended up being a bunch of senators' wives. And it was primarily 4 people. But they also had a spokeslady named Candy Stroud. She seemed to really enjoy getting onto the television set to debate this and start talking about masturbation and other intricate sex practices.
Casual sex, masturbation, incest, violent rape, explicit, graphic, violent, pornographic. If the kid can't make you come, I want to get you off, baby, masturbating with a magazine. Buzzsaw blade between his thighs, mock rape. IF blank blank K like a beast.
That show up in pop songs in the 80s, probably, early rap and, of course, heavy metal, which was just kind of hitting its stride at this point.
Some punk as well. I think some punk bands were kind of attacked by them as well.
Yeah, they should have been, of course. Probably because they were a much smaller market for a number of years. They didn't really pay much attention to them, And then suddenly metal was getting big. Ozzy had that big album.
Wizard of Oz. The song Suicide Solution, and part of it was, Ozzy getting blamed for apparently a kid actually committed suicide after listening to the song. If all it takes for you to commit suicide is to listen to a song, that's...
Yeah,
I'm not
it
sure
seems a little out there, doesn't it? It does. It seems just a touch out there. But that's how things were in the 80s. People were a little bit touchy. Can you imagine these same people today? Everybody panic! There was historical precedent to hassling musicians over what they do on stage. Like even Elvis, there were issues over the fact that he would dance and drive the girls nuts. So Ed Sullivan wouldn't film below his waist at all. So all of his appearances on the Ed Sullivan are super close-ups.
It's as old as rock and roll itself.
That's right. Even the name rock and roll is actually a slang term for sex from the 50s or something, or possibly even earlier than that. It's got a long history, of being accused of unsavory things. And that's much to our entertainment because there's plenty we can look at now. I think you and I probably agree, Adrian, that the parents should really be the ones taking control of the situation within their own households. But
exactly.
They came down to this labeling system, which quickly became a joke because as soon as you put the label on, the record was guaranteed to sell more. There's nothing like the forbidden to really market something to its full potential. They went after Def Leppard and Wasp, of course, Madonna, and Twisted Sister for We're Not Gonna Take It.
What do you want to do with your life? I want to rock.
So we're going to be entertained with a little bit of Dee's testimony, too.
This is really must-see video.
Okay, so this particular hearing took place on, I believe, September 19 of 1985. And it was a one-day, 5-hour hearing in the Senate Commerce Committee on record lyric labeling. Yes, they did take some time out of their busy days to have this hearing. Frank Zappa, Dee Snider, and John Denver all made very good use of their time on here.
And I've heard some conflicting reports as to whether or not people in this committee want legislation.
You better concentrate on your testimony rather than asking questions.
I need to ask it because I have to change something in my testimony if there is not a clear-cut version of
That's
whether
right.
or not
Don't weasel out of it.
Legislation is what is being discussed here. The PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children, infringes the civil liberties of people who are not children, and promises to keep the courts busy for years dealing with the interpretational and enforcemental problems inherent in the proposal's design. It is my understanding that, in law, First Amendment issues are decided with a preference for the least restrictive alternative. In this context, the PMRC demands are the equivalent of treating dandruff by decapitation.
Indeed.
No one has forced Mrs. Baker or Mrs. Gore to bring Prince or Sheena Easton into their homes. Thanks to the Constitution, they are free to buy other forms of music for their children. Apparently, they insist on purchasing the works of contemporary recording artists in order to support a personal illusion of aerobic sophistication. Ladies, please be advised, the $8.98 purchase price does not entitle you to a kiss on the foot from the composer or performer in exchange for a spin on the family Victrola. Taken as a whole, the complete list of PMRC demands reads like an instruction manual for some sinister kind of toilet training program to housebreak all composers and performers because of the lyrics of a few. Ladies, how dare you? Record labels need to have HR 2911 whiz through a few committees before anybody smells a rat. One of them is chaired by Senator Thurmond. Is it a coincidence that Mrs. Thurmond is affiliated with the PMRC? I can't say she's a member because the PMRC has no members. Their secretary told me on the phone last Friday that the PMRC has no members, only founders.
Yep.
I asked how many other DC wives are non-members of an organization that raises money by mail, has a tax-exempt status, and seems intent on running the Constitution of the United States through the family paper shredder. I asked her if it was a cult. Finally, she said she couldn't give me an answer and that she had to call their lawyer.
I'm sorry, I need a moment. That's hilarious.
We gotta call our lawyers before we answer that question, whether we're a cult or not.
Oh my, this is funny. Okay.
It is, yeah.
Let's let him continue here.
While the wife of the Secretary of Treasury recites, "Gonna drive my love inside you," and Senator Gore's wife talks about bondage.
Bondage.
Oral sex at gunpoint on the CBS Evening News.
Oral
People
sex.
in high places work on a tax bill that is so ridiculous, the only way to sneak it through is to keep the public's mind on something else. Porn rock.
Yeah, they're trying to pass an increase in the price of cassette tapes, and they're trying to distract people using this whole porn rock thing. That's what I get from what he's saying, anyway. This whole thing is a distraction from another consumer issue that people might have otherwise been more concerned about.
Is the basic issue morality? Is it mental health? Is it an issue at all? The PMRC has created a lot of confusion with improper comparisons between song lyrics, videos, record packaging, radio broadcasting, and live performances. These are all different mediums, and the people who work in them have a right to conduct their business without trade-restraining legislation whipped up like an instant pudding by the wives of Big Brother.
Testify.
Is it proper that the husband of a PMRC non-member founder person sits on any committee considering business pertaining to the blank tape tax or his wife's lobbying organization? Why haven't you considered your child's need for consumer information? Music appreciation costs very little compared to sports expenditures.
This is true.
Children have a right to know that something besides pop music exists. It is unfortunate that the PMRC would rather dispense governmentally sanitized heavy metal music than something more uplifting. What if the next bunch of Washington wives demands a large yellow J on all material written or performed by Jews in order to save helpless children from exposure to concealed Zionist doctrine? How long before composers and performers are told to wear a festive little PMRC armband with their scarlet letter on it?
Oh man, what a thought. You think of that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're Slayer. We have to wear these armbands, you know. Like, so they all figured he was kind of a dummy. He was probably drugged out. Well, he's actually completely clean. And
clean and sober. He's a
pretty well spoken.
Christian, a parent. He's a father.
They totally misjudged him.
They did.
My name is Dee Snider. That's Snider. I have been asked to come here to present my views on, quote, the subject of the content of certain sound recordings and suggestions that recording packages be labeled to provide a warning to prospective purchasers of sexually explicit or other potentially offensive content, unquote. Before I get into that, I'd like to tell the committee a little bit about myself. I'm 30 years old. I'm married. I have a 3-year-old son. I was born and raised a Christian, and I still adhere to those principles. Believe it or not, I do not drink, I do not smoke, and I do not do drugs. Since I seem to be the only person addressing this committee today who has been a direct target of accusations from the presumably responsible PMRC, I would like to use this occasion to speak on a more personal note and show just how unfair the whole concept of lyrical interpretation and judgment can be, and how many times this can amount to little more than character assassination. I have taken the liberty of distributing to you material and lyrics pertaining to these accusations. There were 3 attacks in particular which I would like to address. Accusation number 1.
This is good.
This attack was contained in an article written by Tipper Gore, which was given the form of a full page in my hometown newspaper on Long Island. In this article, Ms. Gore claimed that one of my songs, Under the Blade, had lyrics encouraging sadomasochism, bondage, and rape. The lyrics she quoted have absolutely nothing to do with these topics. On the contrary, the words in question are about surgery and the fear that it instills in people. Furthermore, the reader of this article is led to believe that the 3 lines she quotes go together in the song, when, as you can see from reading the lyrics, the first 2 lines she cites are an edited phrase from the 2nd verse, and the 3rd line is a misquote of a line from the chorus. That the writer could misquote me is curious, since we make it a point to print all our lyrics on the inner sleeve of every album.
Yeah, Tipper, read the lyrics.
As the creator of Under the Blade, I can say categorically that the only sadomasochism, bondage, and rape in this song is in the mind of Ms. Gore.
Oops.
Accusation 2. The PMRC has made public a list of 15 of what they feel are some of the most blatant songs lyrically. On this list is our song, We're Not Gonna Take It, upon which has been bestowed a V rating indicating violent lyrical content. You'll note from the lyrics before you that there is absolutely no violence of any type, either sung about or implied anywhere in the song. Now, it strikes me that the PMRC may have confused our video presentation for this song with the meaning of the lyrics. It's no secret that videos often depict storylines completely unrelated to the lyrics of the song they accompany. The video for We're Not Gonna Take It was simply meant to be a cartoon with human actors playing variations on the Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote theme.
I remember that.
Each stunt was selected from my extensive personal collection of cartoons. You'll note when you watch the entire video that after each catastrophe our villain suffers through, in the next sequence he reappears unharmed by any previous attack, no worse for the wear. By the way, I'm very pleased to note that the United Way of America has been granted a request to use portions of our We're Not Gonna Take It video in a program they are producing on the subject of the changing American family. It is gratifying that an organization as respected as the United Way of America appreciates where we're coming from.
My gosh.
Thank you, United Way.
I mean, really. What he's showing us is these people have no idea what they're doing, and they want to change everything based on something that they've completely misrepresented. And even when they had the materials to study, they didn't. Are they really concerned about this, or what are they doing? Anyway.
Accusation number 3. Last Tuesday, a public forum regarding the lyric controversy was held in New York. Among the panelists was Ms. Gore. Trying to stem the virtual tidal wave of anti-rating sentiment coming from the audience, Ms. Gore made the following statement, quote, "I agree this is a small percentage of all music, thank goodness, but it's becoming more mainstream. You look at even the t-shirts the kids are wearing, and you see Twisted Sister and a woman in handcuffs sort of spread-eagled," unquote. This is an outright lie. Not only have we never sold a shirt of this type, we have always taken great pains to steer clear of sexism in our merchandise, records, stage show, and personal lives. Furthermore, we have always promoted the belief that rock and roll should not be sexist, but should cater to males and females equally. I feel that an accusation of this type is irresponsible, damaging to our reputation, and slanderous. I defy Ms. Gore to produce such a shirt to back up her claim. I'm tired of running into kids on the street who tell me that they can't play our records anymore because of the misinformation their parents are being fed by the PMRC on TV and in the newspapers. These are the only 3 accusations I've come across. All 3 are totally unfounded. Who knows what other false and irresponsible things have been said about me or my band. Parents can thank the PMRC for reminding them that there is no substitute for parental guidance, but that is where the PMRC's job ends. The examples I cited earlier showed clear evidence of Twisted Sisters music being completely misinterpreted and unfairly judged by supposedly well-informed adults. We cannot allow this to continue.
Who all look very uncomfortable.
There is no authority, the right, or the necessary insight judgments. Not myself, not the federal government, not some recording industry committee, not the PTA, not the RIAA, and certainly not the PMRC.
Mr. Snider, let's suppose that there is music which, say, glorifies incest, not yours. Let's suppose that there is some music that glorifies incest. Do you think parents should know about it? Or do you think that it's just a matter between whoever is selling the record and whoever's buying it?
As I said in my testimony, I think it's very important that parents be aware of that these lyrics exist.
How could they find out about it?
By seeing what they're...
Quite simply, as a parent myself and as a rock fan, I know that when I see an album cover with a severed goat's head in the middle of a pentagram between a woman's legs, that's not the kind of album I want my son to be listening to.
Right.
He's got a point.
If I read a title, say somebody said Ice Cream Castle, title called If the Kid Can't Make You Come, whatever it is, I realize that's a sexually explicit song. By just looking at the cover, looking at the lyrics, looking at the, I should say, the titles, that should cover just about all bases. The few albums that do not express their intentions on the cover or in the song titles, I think a parent could take it home, listen to it, and I don't think there's too many retail stores that would deny them the ability to return the album for something different.
Do you think that that most parents or even kids, for that matter, know everything that's on an album when they buy when a child buys an album?
Today, nobody knows why this guy asked the question. Because what do you mean? You see, back then in the 80s, at the time of the PMRC, in America, you did not have the option to listen to an album before you purchased it. In most places, there was no such thing as having a turntable or a listening station or anything like that. And of course, the internet was decades away from public consumption.
I don't think that the majority of parents are in reality as concerned as the PMRC or myself. I don't think they really want to spend the time to listen to what they might consider to be a bunch of noise. They put it on and they can't understand the thing that's being said anyway. So
you and I would differ as to what's obscene or what's shocking or what's vulgar. And persons of goodwill will differ. Let's take the score. I think that somewhere in this hearing record, we should not be on the defensive and we shouldn't create the atmosphere that we're powerless. The absolute nature of your statement that we don't have any authority, I only want to refer everyone to the Pacifica Foundation case, where the Federal Communications Commission was questioned as to its power to regulate public radio, TV broadcasts that was indecent but not obscene.
Those are public airwaves.
What was indecent, what was obscene, and what was shocking. They had the 7 dirty words. I think everyone remembers that case on the West Coast. I understand your opinion, and that's why we invited you up here to hear your words and not mine, but I think that the general nature of all this testimony of nothing censorship, First Amendment absolutism does not pertain with respect to the broadcast media, and that's, of course, the main media, I guess you would agree, to actually sell the record, wouldn't it not be?
Yes, because I'd like to clarify something. I said no authority has the right or necessary insight. I didn't say you weren't able to. I said you don't have the right, or I don't have the right, or the RIAA. That's also, right. We're talking about the airwaves as opposed to a person going with their money to purchase an album to play in their room, their home, on their own time. The airwaves is something different. I think that the FCC and even MTV have done a fair job in keeping profanity, obscenity, and things like that off the public airwaves. But as far as when you listen to your own home, that's something totally different, I feel.
About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, before this committee, we had the TV network.
Oh, we can do
And
things.
pursuant to that particular hearing, they again came back, I remember specifically CBS, and they demonstrated how they had this film, and then they got together with their producer and removed certain scenes of violence and certain four-letter words and did not offend the producers. So we've made some progress. But bottom line, with respect to these particular records, the Supreme Court has found that there is that right and that responsibility.
That's correct, sir, but okay.
Excuse me, are you going to tell me you're a big fan of my music as well?
I'm not a fan of
Al Gore that.
Not a fan of your music.
I'm aware that Frank Zappa and John Denver cover quite a spectrum, and I do enjoy them both. I am not, however, a fan of Twisted Sister, and I will readily say that. Mr. Snider, what is the name of your fan club?
The fan club is called the SMF Friends of Twisted Sister.
And what does SMF stand for when it's spelled out?
It stands for the Sick Motherfucking Friends of Twisted Sister.
Is this also a Christian group?
I don't believe that profanity has anything to do with Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
You hear what he said? And he doesn't believe that profanity has anything to do with Christianity. That was Dee Snider's response.
I sure did. And I that's my observation too.
It's just an interesting choice because I was getting the impression from your presentation that you were a very wholesome kind of performer.
See, there's only one kind of Christian.
That is an interesting title for your fan club. Have you ever had surgery with your hands tied and your legs strapped?
The song was written about my guitar player, Eddie Ojeda. He was having polyps removed from his throat, and he was very fearful of this operation. And I said, Eddie, while you're in the hospital, I'm going to write a song for you. I said it was about the fear of operations. I think people imagine being helpless on a table, the bright light in their face, the blade coming down on them.
Seriously.
Totally afraid that they may wake up, who knows, dead, handicapped. There's a certain fear of hospitals. That's in my imagination, what I see the hospitals like.
Is there a reference to the hospital in the song?
No, there isn't, but there isn't a reference to a woman, sadomasochism, or bondage, yes, I'm sorry.
There's just a reference to someone whose hands are tied down.
Oh, see, there was a reference.
Going under the blade to be cut.
Yes, there is.
All right.
I got my reference in.
So
I wasn't wrong.
Not really a wild leap of the imagination to jump to the conclusion that that's about something other than surgery or hospitals, neither of which are mentioned in the song.
No, it's not a wild jump, and I think what I said in one part was that songs allow a person to put their own imagination, experiences, and dreams into the lyrics. People can interpret it many ways. Ms. Gore was looking for sadomasochism and bondage, and she found it. Someone looking for surgical references would have found it as well.
Yeah, Al. Yeah. Maybe you should be listening to your wife's subliminal messages, Al.
Why do you think that little sadomasochistic outfits are advertised with the spikes and studs?
Alfred, you're in trouble.
M outfits are marketed to teens and preteens. Is that correct?
Well, they are marketed. Who buys, I'm not sure.
What's the point he's trying to make?
Belabor that point. Now, you said that you can look at the titles of albums and look at the covers and tell what kind of material is inside.
He did qualify that.
Purple Rain give you an indication that the material is about masturbation?
They mean the album title, Purple Rain, not the song title. Yeah. No, it doesn't. I didn't say in all cases. I believe I covered those occasional albums that are a bit misleading. That, like I said, I don't think a store would refuse a parent who came in and said, I don't like what's on this record. I would like my money back.
Yeah.
So
pay attention.
So the choice the parent has then
he did say that.
Is to sit down and listen to every song on the album, right?
Exactly.
Or if they're on the record.
If they're not on the, I think there's.
Then take 40 minutes and listen to the record.
Lyrics are printed. That's one possible.
If it's this important.
Let's suppose.
Right.
First world problem.
The parent has to sit down and listen to every song on the album.
Oh no, I have to listen to an album for my son or daughter.
They have to.
Yeah.
You think that's reasonable to expect parents to do that?
Being a parent isn't a reasonable thing. It's a very hard thing. I'm a parent and I know. Okay, I'm a new parent. I only have one child maybe, but I'm learning that there's a lot to being a parent that you didn't expect. It's not just, oh, isn't baby cute? There's a lot of labor and a lot of time and a lot of effort that goes into it. It's not totally pleasurable.
Yeah, and you'll find when they get a little bit older that when they're exposed to the kinds of themes that we were presented with earlier, that if you love your child, you're going to be concerned about that. And it is totally unreasonable, in my view, to expect parents to come and sit down and listen to every single song.
He's complaining about listening to the record.
In order to fulfill their responsibilities.
That is not unreasonable.
Now, the only thing...
No, it's not.
Less reasonable to be trying to make a blanket thing here.
You're right, it's tough being a parent. It's even tougher being a kid. If both are going to be able to deal with the kind of material that's coming out in popular music, it seems to me the industry has a responsibility to give them a little help.
All of this is because Al and the other senators presumably are arguing they don't want to sit down and listen to Purple Rain. It's coming down to here. It's silly. Yeah, I think that if you're really concerned, you should listen to the music that your kids are listening to. I mean, don't parents already do this anyway with the internet? Parents can look at the histories, right?
Yeah.
Parents really should be paying attention to the interactions that their children are having. This is no different. It's a pretty good record. That's what struck me there is the argument is that we're supposed to have a label. It's like, okay, great, now you have a label. Well, as it turned out, the label was good for sales. So maybe not the first year. Not the first year, perhaps, but after that was a good way to get a record to sell. I mean, I think they actually wanted the label soon after.
Yeah, totally backfired in that way. Yeah, well, it's, I think when I saw this part of the video, I think it was just, they just keep making these arbitrary statements and everything, and Dee Snider keeps correcting them.
Let's go take a look at John Denver.
Yeah, this guy was a breath of fresh air. He delivers a hopeful sounding message, but even he doesn't waver in his defense of artistic freedom. This is just as good as the other guys.
See, they don't seem so unhappy to see him.
Yeah.
It's a great honor and a privilege to appear before you this morning and to take advantage of the opportunity given me in our free society to speak my mind. I'm here to address the issue of a possible rating system in the recording industry, labeling records where excesses of explicit sex or graphic violence have occurred, and furthermore references to drugs and alcohol or the occult are included in the lyrics. These hearings have been called to determine whether or not the government should intervene to enforce this practice. Mr. Chairman, this would approach censorship. May I be very clear that I'm strongly
not as happy.
Censorship at any time. I've had in my experience 2 encounters with a sort of censorship. My song Rocky Mountain High was banned from many radio stations as a drug-related song. This was obviously done by people who'd never seen or been to the Rocky Mountains and also had never experienced the elation, the celebration of life, or the joy in living that one feels when he observes something as wondrous as the Perseid meteor shower. Mr. Chairman, what assurance am I that any national panel to review my music would make any better judgment? To my knowledge, my movie, Oh God, was not banned in any theaters. However, some newspapers refused to print our advertisements, and some theaters refused to put the name of the film in the marquee. I don't believe that we were using the name of our Lord in vain. Quite the opposite, we were making a small effort to spread his message that we are here for each other and not against each other. Discipline and self-restraint practiced by an individual, a family, or a company is an effective way to deal with this issue. The same thing when forced on a people by their government, or worse, by a self-appointed watchdog of public morals, is suppression and will not be tolerated in a democratic society.
The way that it was like a balloon deflating, these guys on the panel. Oh, John, there you are. We have your support, don't we? Well, actually, you went and you tried to ban my song Rocky Mountain High, or somebody did, about a nature thing, and you guys made it about drugs. And then my Oh God movie, I couldn't even get that on the marquee there, and it was a totally, it's like being called a subversive, and I'm not a subversive. This is just, And they're all like,
Mr. Chairman, the suppression of a people, of a society, begins, in my mind, with the censorship of the written or spoken word. It was so in Nazi Germany. It is so in many places today where those...
now he's referencing Nazi Germany.
Yep.
In a mature and incredibly diverse society such as ours, the access to all perspectives of an issue becomes more and more important. Those things which in our experience are undesirable generally prove to be unfurthering and sooner or later become boring.
Yeah,
that process cannot and should not be stifled. On the other hand, that which is denied becomes that which is most interesting.
That's true too.
Hidden fruits are the sweetest.
Denied becomes that which is most desired, and that which is hidden becomes that which is most interesting. Consequently, a great deal of time and energy is spent trying to get at what is being kept from you. Our children, our people, our society, and the world cannot afford this waste. I suggest that explicit lyrics and graphic videos are not so far removed from what is seen on television every day and night, whether it be in the soap operas or on the news. That we should point our finger at the recording industry while watching the general public at a nationally televised baseball game chant in unison, "The Blue Jays suck," is ludicrous.
He's right.
Yep. In my opinion, has to do with our willingness as parents to take responsibility for the upbringing of our children, to pay attention to their interests, to respond to their needs, and to recognize that we as parents and as individuals have a greater influence on our children and on each other than anything else could possibly have. To quote a wise old man from ancient China, "If there be righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in the character. If there be beauty in the character, there will be harmony in the home. If there be harmony in the home, there will be order in the nation. And if there be order in the nation, there will be peace in the world." The people that I've had the opportunity to talk with, the troubled children, the teenagers who are considering suicide, what they express to me is a real frustration in their lives, an inability to communicate with their parents, an inability to understand or to envision any kind of a possible future because of the nuclear threat that we live under. They don't see things getting better economically. They don't see things getting better for the small businessman, for the small farmer. They do not see a future for themselves. It is my opinion that it is out of this that some young people put a gun into their mouths and pull the trigger.
That's bold.
We can address the reality of a problem and not deal with just the symptoms, and create not only a better world for our children, for ourselves and all of humanity.
All right, first of all, bravo. John was a great man. Those were words of wisdom that everybody could live by. And he nailed it on the head. There's a whole pyramid there. I don't know how many people have heard of Maslow's pyramid. You really have to deal with your basics first before you can even start thinking about anything above that. You've got to have your shelter, have food and water, to be able to provide just enough to be able to keep that shelter and keep yourself fed and keep your family fed and all that. And it's only after you have that stuff under control that you can start looking at other things above that, like social issues, or do I want a jet ski? I mean, the things that you start focusing on, that you have the luxury of focusing on, are things that are of less and less importance to your stable being. Near the top there is actually the whole enchilada. If you're really struggling at a basic level just to stay alive or just to get through your every day, that's more likely what happened to the kid that killed himself over while listening to Suicide Solution. He was looking for comfort in the song, I would think.
Yeah.
I know that Lemmy was quoted on a camera saying, "Yeah, this would get laughed off the face of the earth in England." You know, I can imagine it would have just. And honestly, it's kind of funny that it got that much attention here.
There's a lot of hysteria, I think, about everything. I think a lot of social things. There was that whole war on drugs, which is actually more like a war on people, in my opinion. But
it didn't really work out. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, it was another example of what was going on, I think. Yeah.
So here's to my tie from 1984, and my skinny. We wanted to at least get to the hearing part of PMRC because it's very entertaining, as you saw. If you have any thoughts or recollections about what was going on in your world back when the PMRC was being a big deal, we'd love to hear about it. Go ahead and drop it below. And if you wouldn't mind maybe giving us a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you'd like to see more. We'll get back to you in the future on this very topic. I know I'm sure. So until then, all right, have a great weekend.
All right, see you folks later.